This is an interview by Brian Pettitt with Donny Stranks of 1 Mill Lane, Stambridge. Yeah. We'll stick that there. Right. Donny, what are your first memories? You've always lived in Stambridge, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. I was born at Little Hall.
At Little Hall, right.
Across the meadow there.
Okay.
Yeah. And my mother died when I was about 18 months old, I think, when she had my sister.
Oh, right.
And my father kept with us, and my granny and grandfather brought me up. That's how we moved away from there just before the war broke out. In the September we moved from Little Hall over to the old brewery cottages, and went by wagon and horses, you know,
yeah.
That time of day.
Yeah.
And but before we moved away, Donald Rankin, he was married then, and Pat and them, he'd got them children, Mottram and Patrick, and he had his own aeroplane at Little Hall.
Did he?
Yes.
What sort of aeroplane was that?
And that was a Hawker Tomtit, they tell me.
Right.
Twin wing one. But he was a marvellous flyer. And on a Saturday evening, in the summertime, he'd go up there and he'd be looping a loop, diving and twisting and turning all about and that. He used to take Charlie Pryor, his gardener and groom, up with him at times for flights, and on a Sunday morning. And my grandfather cut the hedge down at Little Hall so he could take off and land there, you know.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Yes. I remember him a-flying. And when war broke out, I think that Eddie Earn, I think they told me, with a mill lorry, took the wings off of it and they towed it away at the airport because I suppose the government commandeered it, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And he went in the Air Force, the RAF, and they tell me, I think it ain't so far out, he was a flying instructor. And I think whether he was in Africa, whether it was South Africa or Rhodesia, I don't know, but he was training the Africans to fly.
Oh, okay. Very interesting.
For the war, you know.
Very interesting.
And he came home when old Harold Rankin got seriously ill to take over the business, you know, the farming and the mill.
Mm-hmm. So, do you remember seeing this aircraft flying?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes, yes.
And when it took off from Little Hall,
on that meadow. That was
on the meadow?
It was a meadow there, yeah.
Right.
There was all meadows about there then. I mean, we pulled all the hedges and filled the ditches in and made it all in one now across there. But I can tell you where all the meadows, where the fields were, different separate fields, you know.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so those were some of your early memories.
Yes, yeah. Because I always remember my grandfather saying after we got up here, when we were moving away, he said, we're moving away now, we're just seeing a bit of sport. When he said, after we got up here and the war broke out, he said, all very well saying to see a bit of sport, he said, we're going to see plenty of it now, you know. Yeah.
So did you spend the war years up at Little Hall?
No, over at the old brewery here.
The brewery,
old brewery cottages, yeah.
And those cottages are all gone now?
Yes, yeah. I can't remember when they knocked them down, but they moved my father out because he was working down the mill as a painter and decorator and so forth. And they moved him down to, they're gone now, they knocked them down, Coronation Cottages, down the lane here.
I see.
That's all the lorry park now.
Right.
Yeah. I moved him to there. But I can't remember when it happened, you know.
So, how was life at home with your grandparents? Because they probably came from an even stricter generation.
Oh yeah.
Time. And did your grandfather still work then?
Hey?
Grandfather still work then?
Well, grandfather kept working, but he had to give up the horses when he was 65. But he still worked on the farm, trimming out the ditches and trimming the hedges and all that, you know. He worked till he was 80, but before he got 80, during the war this was, they asked him if he'd go down to Little Hall, because Mrs. Donald Rankin was still there, and be the gardener for her, and that's where he finished up. He was 80 when he packed up down there. Yeah. So he never rode a bike or nothing, he walked everywhere.
Walked everywhere.
Yeah. That's right.
And you mentioned the other day your school years. You started off at Stambridge?
Stambridge, yes. I started off, my granny said, at 4.5. I was 4.5 years old when she took me up there, because my brother, he died last April. He was on his own and he couldn't get over losing my mother, they said, you know. And they said that he used to stand in the corner of the playground all on his own and that, and he wanted company. So, excuse me, they wanted me to start school, so I started school at 4.5 to be company for him. We used to walk from Little Hall to this school, night and morning, right. And that's over a mile and a quarter, I reckon.
It's quite a lot for a little.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
And do you remember your first teachers?
Yes, Miss James.
Miss James
was my first teacher.
Right.
She was in the infants, and Mr. Richards was the master in the grade standard 1, did they call it, standard 2, was in the other room. And Miss Shuttlewood from Peglesham, the boat building people I think they were, she was in the other room. There was like 3 classrooms.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was there a headmaster or a headmistress in that?
He was a headmaster.
Headmaster.
Mr. Richards, yeah.
That was Mr. Richards.
And he lived, you know, Malton Villas, that road going into Malton Villas, right opposite that, as like a black and white, like chalet.
Okay.
Well, he lived there.
He lived there, okay.
Yeah, and he used to walk to school night and morning, you know.
And were they the teachers for the whole time that you were there, or did you have some changes?
No, during the war, I think Mr. Richards retired. And I remember Mrs. Gorner coming there. Her husband was in the army, and he taught me at Rochford School when the war had finished, or he'd come out of the army, and he was a master at Rochford over here in Roach Way. And a Mrs. Sudell come there too. And then after, sometime or other, before I went to Rochford School, we had a teacher come there called Mrs. Jeffries. And she was the one who I had several years with her, you know, before I left there to go to, when I opened up that school again. I went there.
So which school was closed? What, Roachway was closed?
Yes, because the army were there with them guns.
Oh, okay.
They had them 4 guns down there.
Right.
And that was after the war was coming to an end, sort of thing.
These were the ACAT guns that you mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah.
They opened it up again. So we all went back there. Canewden, Hockley, Wakeran, Barland, you know, still like they do now at King Edmund. All come back there, the seniors, like, you know.
I see, right. So, okay, see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was it? I guess school was pretty strict in those days. What are your memories of of the experience of school? Good, bad?
Yeah, I can't say that bad.
No, you enjoyed it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That time of day, the girls and boys were parted, you know. The boys, there was iron railings across the middle of that yard.
Right.
And the boys were this side near the churchyard and the girls the other side. And they joined up with the infants, you know, around that side.
Right.
Yeah.
Never the twain shall meet.
Yeah.
And the same thing at Roachway, you were segregated at Roachway when you went there? Boys and girls?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, all the boys were this end.
Yeah.
And the girls that end.
Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about your favourite lessons at school, or was it sort of general education?
Oh, I was the best in the school for gardening.
Ah.
On my school report, I could get it out, but I don't want to trouble now. I said, gardening, best in the school, excellent. I got a 4-time fork down the shed. I won for the best kept garden there.
Fantastic.
Because we had an allotment, you know.
Right. Was that a specific lesson for gardening, was it?
Yes, oh yeah, we had a lesson for gardening.
Okay.
And for science.
Right.
As well, but those separate lessons.
Right.
But up there, you didn't have that at Stambridge, but up there you went to different classrooms for different subjects.
Okay.
You had your main teacher to call a register in the morning, and then the bell went. There was a bellboy, one of the older, fourth year lot, you'd go round and ring the bell when it was to change a lesson. You'd go to another teacher for history or something like that, you know. Yeah.
What about the subjects that you did, like gardening? They don't do today, do they? Were there any other subjects that you did in those days that they don't do today?
Ooh. I don't know.
You did some maths and English.
Yeah, yeah.
Religious education and that.
You done that with your regular teacher.
Your form teacher, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. But history and that, you go to another class.
Right.
Or geography, another class. And that was geography, Mr. Gorner. I say his wife come out temporarily up here at the school here during the war.
Mm-hmm.
But when he come back out the army, he was there and he was a geography teacher, Mr. Gorner.
Okay.
And also, I mean, he loved rugby.
Okay.
Whereas a lot of us other boys would want to play football, you know. And he was a North Country bloke, Yorkshire bloke, and he thought you was all still in the army, you know. When he was in the lines, that was right-hand dress, you know. So, albeit just same distance apart, you know. And if any of the boys got fighting or anything, right, you can put the gloves on, I'll have you in the ring tonight, you know, in the hall. Yeah, he was like that.
And were you ever in the ring?
No.
You're well behaved.
Only sometimes in PT we'd have a bit of sparring about that, you know. Yeah.
So did he convert you to rugby, or were you always a football?
No.
Always football?
I was never one for football, but there used to be the team what played for the school or the school's team, but us others were the hobbly-hoys, like. Well, we used to enjoy it more because there'd be every one of us out of the ball, whereas they'd all got to play on position and all that, you know, and pass it and trap it and all that. So I used to be like being in the rough gang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you didn't play football, what about your pastimes? What did you do when you had time to play?
What, in the playground?
Well, yeah, and outside of school. What did you enjoy doing outside of school?
Ooh. What's those? I had an old barrow I put on 4 wheels and that was my tractor. All I thought about was tractors.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to play in that meadow over there. We'd going up and down. I'd come home from school and listen to see if I could hear them tractors. Because that time of day, they never had silencers on the exhaust. They were straight through. And I could hear the noise. I knew which tractor they were, you know. And I used to run home, change out of my school clothes and put my old clothes on and go and find them and go with them for a ride for an hour, you know. My poor old grandfather used to take on. He said, them blokes have got their work to do. They don't want you boy running about with them, you know. But they encouraged me. I mean, the old man who put me on that tractor first of all was Ernie Lucy. He lived up in the church cottages there. He was a grey-haired man, and he wouldn't put up with no boys, but I couldn't do nothing wrong. You know, he took to me. He used to call me Doodlebug. Yeah. Doodle, he said. And when I was riding on the mud, he used to sit me on the mud guard of the old tractor, and he said, he called it his old engine. You're going to have my old engine, he said, when I pack up. Well, I reckon that was him who got me to get on to Donald, to get us to go and work for him and go on the tractors, you know. Because when my granny died, Donald Rankin wrote to my father saying that he'd like him to come and work for him as regards the painting and maintenance on the houses and all the property and all that, and doing the wagons and carts. But he said, we'd like your 2 boys. Well, when my old chap went to see him, he interviewed him, he said, they told me that the youngest one was very interested in the tractors. Yes, he said. Right, he said, well, we'll endeavour to train him as a tractor driver. He said, what about the other one? So he said, he can come in down the mill here with Reg Austin, the carpenter. He said, we're training him to be a carpenter. But when we said to my brother about it, he didn't want to do that. He wanted to go on the farm. And he went with horses. So he was a horseman at Little Hall. Time they got horses. Yeah. Until they got rid of them. And then he went Damon on the farm. And then after that, he went in the chicken sheds when they got the chickens. And he finished up in the chicken sheds. But Rankin sold the chicken sheds overnight, sort of thing. He was working for Rankin one day, and when he went down next morning, Stan Robson, one of the directors, went in there and said, from now on, Jim, you're working for Fessenda. You know, lock, stock and barrel houses and all. And Georgie Gale, who lived next door here, he was the same, you know. So Fessenda took the houses what the blokes were in.
Right.
That's how they've still got them now. Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. So when did you actually leave school and go to work for Rankin? How old were you?
I was in 48. I started at Rankin's. I've got the gold watch up there now, from 48 to 97.
Wow.
49-year tractor driving.
So you started at 16. You carried on your education until you were 16.
No, being my granny was at the finish, she was bedridden. My brother had to do head cook and bottle washer and look after my grandfather. My grandfather died in 46. And of course, when I left school in well, what was it? 48. No, we've been at home 2 years. I left school in 46. Then my grandfather died, so my brother went to work at the rectory for the parson in the garden for a year. Then he left there and went on the farm. But I had to stay at home and look after my granny, and do the shopping, head cook and bottle washer best I could and all that. And I was 16 when my granny died, and that was in 1948. And Donald said I was too young to go on the tractors and that. Well, my father said, you ought to get another job, boy. So I went to Doe's at Rochford, because Doe hadn't been there long. And I always remember the manager there, Jimmy Rennick, his name was. I went down and asked him if there was a chance for a job. No, he said, I'll start at the bottom, because I wanted, because when I left school, I had people come round to see what job you wanted to do, and I said I was interested in tractors. They said, we can get you a job for Darby's, that was a tractor farm at Wickford, done international harvests. I said, well, I can't go. I said, I've got to stay at home and look after my granny, and they couldn't make nothing out of that, you know. They didn't know the situation we was in. So I stayed at home, looked after my granny. I mean, my aunties and uncles and all of them said how wonderful I was, really. But never mind. I paid back what she'd done for us. That's what they all said to me afterwards. You got no regrets, boy. Yeah. But anyway, I went there, and he said, no, I've got nothing for boys. And I always held that against him, you know. I went down to Warren's. You know where they've just built that supermarket now with the BP garage? Well, that was C&F Warren then. Agricultural engineers. Well, before Doe come there, about 1946, that yard was Doe's all now, was smoothies. They was steam engine people, had road rollers, traction engines, ploughing engines, the lot. And I went to school with one of the boys' smoothies. His name was John Smoothie, and he told me at school that his father was there steaming them all up because they was going to get rid of a lot of them. But I mean, a lot of them went for scrap. I mean, it's a fortune they'd be today, a fortune. And I went up there shopping because I was still just going to school, and I stopped there. There was a low loader there, and I couldn't make out how they got them engines on their low loaders. And I stood there and watched them. They, you know, on the back of a low loader, the double wheels, they jack it up with bottle jacks, and there's only a pin in there and like a big thick washer over that shaft what sticks out, and they slide them two wheels off either side, and then drop the jack down and let the floor of that low loader go on the road. And then they drove the road rollers on them and then jacked it up again. Yeah, I'll see them do that. Yeah.
Good way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, holidays and things were probably out with your mother having gone and things.
Yeah, Now,
what did you do in school holidays and things? Did you ever get away or go to see relatives?
No, we went to work. Because we lived under Rankin and that, old George Dowsett was the farm manager and foreman, and he lived up in them church cottages. He'd either send somebody off the farm to tell you, he wanted us two boys to go pea turning, because they used to cut the peas then with a short side, the blokes, and put it in wads, and we used to go there with a pitchfork, not the points into it, but the pitchfork backwards, and turn them over to dry them, you know, to harvest them all. We used to do that, and for 4p an hour, old money, yeah, in the first war, in the war.
Right.
In 5 weeks we had holiday, and we'd pull fat hen out of the potatoes, go gleaning behind the wagons, like when I was picking up them peas and that. If they dropped any bit of the pea rice, we boys were walking along behind them, pick them up and put them on the heap and that, and then they'd put them on the load. Yeah. I remember doing that. Did
you get to bring any of the peas home when you were gleaning? Anything that you'd missed?
No.
All the gleanings went on because.
Oh yes. Yeah, they was harvested peas. You see, they was hard peas, and they were going to stack them.
Right.
They stack them, then would thrash them at the stack with a thrashing machine in the winter time. You know.
But Eric told me the thrashing machine used to be down opposite the oak, didn't it?
That's right. That was Stambridge Thrashing Company.
Who's?
Stambridge Thrashing Company.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The last person, I think, to own that was the name of Woods.
Okay.
Yeah, they called it the Hollies or something where he lived down there. Yeah.
I think I know this. Yeah.
But then Rankin in about, I think it was about 1946, Rankin, they got fed up getting the thrashing company to come, because whenever they won them, all the other farmers won them. So they got their own thrashing machine, Rankin did. I think it was 46, a Fisher Humphreys, I remember it. I worked on it, ruddy thing.
They could be quite dangerous, couldn't they?
Wow, dusty, mate, dust. You never wore a mask or nothing. Yeah. That's why I'm a lot like it now, it ain't all smoking. Yeah.
Okay. So there was no holidays away, or it was down to the beach in Stambridge, was it occasionally?
Oh yeah, we'd go down there, call that the Rochford Beach, I've heard them say now.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Yeah, but I remember going there, because there was a bit of a beach this end towards Broom Hills, you know.
Yeah.
We'd go down there paddling. I couldn't swim, but we'd paddle. And that's when the barges used to come up and down there.
Okay, so you remember the barges going up?
Rankin had two barges.
Okay.
The Joy and the Lord Roberts.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened to them? Do you know? Were they all scuppered somewhere?
I think the Lord Roberts finished up at Malden. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I think I might have heard that, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And the Joy?
The Joy, I don't know what happened to that. She was the smaller barge of the two.
Right.
The Lord Roberts was the biggest one.
And they took the grain up?
They brought grain down,
I think. Grain in, rather, to be milled, yeah?
From Tilbury and London docks and that, you know.
Right. And then what happened to the flour after that?
Grew it on the lorries.
They put it on the lorries then, do they?
Yeah, they ground it up in there. And, yeah. But that time of day, all the flour went in like 100-weight bags, sacks. And them lorries, they used to stack them on there, you know, 8 across and that, and then riders on top. Yeah. They had a lorry down there, they reckoned that was 1933 they had it, called an Armstrong Soarer. That was a diesel lorry, she was all engine and cab, yeah, but that used to tow a trailer. And they used to put 8 ton on the trailer, and I think 6 ton was on the lorry or something. It used to be 14 ton load, you know. They used to go to London with it, 20 on the back, 20 mile an hour, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Armstrong saw her. And that trailer finished up on the farm in the finish, and I used to use it carting stuff about on the farm, you know.
Probably still over there.
But on the hub of that said Armstrong Whitworth.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So the other day we were speaking about your wartime memories and things, and what are your recollections about that?
Well, like I said, I can remember that them guns, number 4 alls late when they was a firing, and also I remember we laid in bed over them cottages there, and there was a raid on in the night, and shotgun guns were firing, and we heard these bombs are whistling, and my old chap reached over the headboard, I can see it now, and he put his hand against the wall, lay still, he said, and then there was this hell of a bangs and the whole house shook. And next morning we got up, and over in the corner of this field out here, right over next to Little Hall Lane, there was all this dirt all up in the air. And the other side of the road, they straddled Little Hall Lane with 2 bombs. The other one, the third one, knocked that arse overheaded that pylon up there, that steel pylon, and the fourth one landed in Squires' field up there at Doggett's. So they missed them bungalows down Stambridge Road, and they missed Little Hall Lane.
Very fortunate.
Yes, yeah.
That was your closest experience.
Yes, yeah. But then later on, the doodlebugs, when they started to come over, I remember that, looking out the window, the bedroom window over there, it must have been about 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, in the summertime, daylight, and this noise of this plane come over, that doodlebug, just missing them trees, you know, and all the flames are flying out the back of it and rattle, you know, nothing like it. And that was the first time I'd seen a doodlebug. Yeah.
I didn't realise they came in so low.
Well, that was the first one I see. It was so low, but after that they was always higher. But that was the first one we see. Yeah. We thought, well, my brother and all said we thought it was going to hit them bloody trees.
Where did it come down?
I don't know. I don't know. Long as you could hear that engine going, you was safe. But when that stopped, you want to look out. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, one dropped one Sunday night in right opposite Great Hall Farm, very nigh, I think that was very nigh in the creek, and we'd been to church and that, and we've got the windows all open at home there, and my granny and grandfather and that were there, and heard this noise, and then it stopped. The next thing was there was this hell of a bang, and the curtains and that all come in, you know, with a blast. I mean, from over there from Great Hall, and we got on a bike and went down there to look, see where it was, and we could see the mud all up in the creek, you know, just before it was a creek. But I don't know how long it was after that. There was a rocket drop there as well, a warhead of a rocket, but not in the same place, but very nigh close, you know. Yeah.
That would have been one of the V2s then, wouldn't it?
Yes, the V2, yeah.
Okay.
And then a doodlebug, V1, landed at Little Hall on that field we called Hills's. They still call it Hills's, up on the hill there. And as boys, we went down there to have a look, and you know the jet propulsion bit on top, that laid right near the brook as you went over that bridge. There's a bridge there over that brook, and that laid in right next to the brook. And George Dowsett, the chap who taught me all I know about tractors, that's old George Dowsett's son, he told me he got the clock, the alarm clock out of that. He said, trust the old Germans again, he said what he realised was that alarm clock was just an ordinary tin alarm clock. They'd set that at the time when they'd got to cut the fuel off, knowing that they'd probably get to London, you know, and then they'd cut out. Yeah, he said it was only an ordinary, he took it out of it, I think George had it, you know. He told me that's what he got it from.
I wonder where it is now.
I don't know. Poor old George is in the churchyard up there. I'll do his grave. Yeah.
So, in terms of your father was in the Home Guard?
Yes. Yeah.
Was there a lot of the farm people in the
Yeah. Practically everybody was. You know, if I want in the army, you've got to be in the Home Guard or fire service.
Right.
You've got to warden. You've got to be something.
Do something.
You've done two things. That's what they said. Some of them chaps who was in the Home Guard, they said they'd been better off in the army. I said you did get it after 2 hours if you was marching. You got a break. But when you was at home here, you've done a day's work and you've got to go and do all-night guard somewhere. They used to go on guard at the pylons. We called it the pylons. That was that radar station at Canewden. I still keep coughing, mate. Or else they'd go on guard at Rochford. Acacia House, is it called? Or one of them houses in Rochford. Or they go on guard at the mill. And the tale is Frank Clark, before he went in the army, he worked on a farm. He was in the Home Guard, and I was down the mill there. I used to be in that old mill house. He went out there and he thought what he thought was a U-boat, Jerry U-boat up the river. But that was a swan. He went back in. This is where the tale goes, and I ain't so far out. He went back in and they turned out the guard because they said there's a U-boat up the river, but that was a swan. Being in the dark, you see, that time of day there was no lights or nothing, and even you had to have your lamp on your bike blacked out so you've got a slit, you know.
I didn't know that.
All black out, you don't show a light. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you told me the story about them defending the pub.
Oh yeah. That was a standard joke amongst them chaps who was in it. They told me afterwards in the war. They said they used to do the Home Guard parade on Sunday morning. That was all Sunday morning, and Barker, Lieutenant Hypes Barker, as they called him, he had the post office at Stambridge and the bakers.
Right.
So he was a lieutenant. But the officer was one of the Bentles, Percy Bentle and Archie Bentle. They farmed Hampton Barnes, which Rankin have got now. But they lived at Earl's Hall, Pretty-well. That's why when they sold Earl's Hall, Pretty-well, that house up the road here, Earl's Fee, was Mrs. Bentle come out, and that's what she named it, Earl's Fee. Yeah. Yeah.
So they were going to defend the oak to the last man.
Yeah. It said that was a standard joke with them. They said they all used to go to the oak after they finished church parade, and they said they made up their mind they was going to defend the oak to the last man. Yeah.
So they had their priorities sorted out. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. So, any other? I mean, I was talking to Eric before. And are there any other sort of? Did you see any dog fights over?
Oh yes.
There's quite a few here.
Yes. Yeah. In the Battle of Britain, we'd see them. Yeah. Up here, and the smoke trails and that, and you see the parachutes that come down. Whether they was German or whether they was ours, I don't know.
Mm.
But oh yeah, and I remember. In the Battle of Britain, one Sunday night in the summertime again, Rankin, because they had 500 sheep then, black-faced Suffolks. They got them penned just in winters up there, that side of the drive, and Jerry Messerschmitt come back that Sunday night low, and a firing his machine guns and machine gun and everything, and I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe he hit a cow at Walden's. Yeah. But up at the winters there was a barn and a lot of other buildings, and they'd got this, what we called lead-like windows. That wasn't glass. That was like a meshy grey stuff. Like fine wire mesh, but grey like stuff below. We called it lead light. I don't know where it was. But we went up there as boys because there was all pens all in outbuildings where they keep pigs. Well, I did have pigs in there, and we could pick up the bullets because they peppered them windows along there like a calendar, you know, and there was all the 303 things in there. You know, you pick them up off the floor.
So, were there any planes came down round here? So, someone told me there was one over on Brays Lane. I think an American one came down over on Brays Lane somewhere.
Oh, maybe, I don't know. But I remember one, the German, being on, you know, when you go on the Barland Shotland Road,
yeah,
you go along there past that electric substation, don't you, on your left, then you've got that sharp bend. Yeah. Well, that road in there goes to Edgar's farm. Well, it was Edgar's, there's Tabor now, because he's took them all back since they died. Well, they told us at school that there was a Jerry plane down there. So John, my brother-in-law, and me and that got on our bikes and we went over there, and in that meadow behind that bungalow there, that's where that laid. And I think that was a Dornier, because that was a thin fuselage, but all the black crosses on it and the swastika on the tail and all that, and that laid there. It was a twin engine one. Whether Shotland guns got it, I don't know, but I remember one being there. Yeah. And also remember the B-17 landed on Warner's Bridge.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. Tommy Yanks were doing the daylight raids. And I can't remember exact time, year it was, but it must have been the end of 43 or 44 that happened. Nurse Dowsett lived here, and her husband Alf, he was a tractor driver with George. He was another one who taught me all I know about tractors. Well, she used to come over there to see to my granny. And this particular day, when she was late to getting over there, and she said she used to see, it was during the war, she used to go to Southend to get her nursing stuff, I suppose from Boots or wherever it was. But anyway, she couldn't get back from Southend over the bridge. She had to go right the way around. Yeah, that's right. That was a B-17. And George told me afterwards that him and Chubb is David Cornwall it was, were on the park at Gustard Hall that day, because when the war first started and that, they was always afraid of invasion. They put a lot of these like scaffold poles about on all the meadows and things like that where there's a wide open space, and put a rope across the top of them to stop the gliders and that landing, they reckon, you know.
Good idea.
Well, yeah, well, George and Chubb were on the park, as we call it. They still call it the park. It's on your left as you're going up Gustard Hall Lane. Taking them down as that fortress come over them. Very low. He'd been firing red flares. When they fired a red flare, they got wounded on board or they was in trouble. Whether they'd got an engine stop, that probably had. I don't know. But George said as they flew over them, he never made it. He made the airport, but he overshot it, and he landed on top of Warner's Bridge.
Amazing.
But George said them blokes, the crew, some of them they'd got the door open and standing in the doorway ready to jump. So George said they were so low, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
They made it down though. That was the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But I've read about that since. That somebody on Canvas said that there was a B-17 landed on Warner's Bridge, and that was right.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You remember it going over?
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned there, one of the other things I was going to ask you said Chubb. That brings me back to my thought about nicknames and things.
Yeah.
So look, it's sort of your generation and maybe a few years younger. Everybody seemed to have a nickname around here.
Yeah. Well, that was Chubb, but his name was David, really, but I always knew him as Chubb. Yeah.
So
yeah.
Who was responsible for all these nicknames?
Oh,
Was it the families or the boys at school? Or
Don't know. Don't know. I mean, they called me Oily.
Yeah, was that
when I was in my teens and 20s?
Was that because of the tractor interest?
No, yeah, but that was Baker, a chap who worked on the farm. He was horseman when I started, and then he went on the tractors. But when I started at Warren's, you see, I was only there 3 months. He used to see me coming home to dinner on my bike, and I was covered in oil and grease, and he called me Oily.
Ah, right.
And that's how it stuck.
And it stuck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other guy I asked you about, Honk, the tractor.
Oh,
driver.
yeah.
Now, was that to do with this, or was it?
No, I don't know. Just how I don't know how he got the name of Honk, but he, in his single days, his name was John Graves, and his father was Bill Graves, and Bill Graves, the youngest son, is still alive.
Okay.
As far as I know. They lived in the schoolhouse.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, they lived in the schoolhouse. And I mean, I say when my brother started school before me, he spent a year there. Mrs. Graves sort of like took to him. So she used to take him in with Billy to have his dinner. Well, Bill was he must be about 85 now, Bill.
Oh, okay.
I saw him last year in the garden centre at the lower road there. Old Bill, he's done a lot up the church, because his father, I remember his father, when we went to school up here, he used to look after that churchyard, and Mrs. Graves used to clean the church and look after that. Right. He was what they call the sexton, is it?
Sexton, yeah.
He'd wear that cloak and that, and he'd hand out the hymn books and that when he went in there, right. And he'd ring the bells. Okay. And he also used to dig the graves. Okay. Yeah.
So Graves the grave digger?
Yes, it was, yeah. But he used to mow that churchyard with a scythe, and I've seen him do it. Wow. And he thought the world of that. And if only us kids were playing a ball in that playground, and that went out, so there was a privet hedge along that wall, still is, but that was a lot lower then and trimmed properly. If he see one of the older boys, jump up on that wall and jump over it. Blimey, he was out there hard at you. And he said, if it goes over there again, you won't get it back, I'll have to put my knife in it. If you want that ball, you come and see me. And I see who'll get it. You're not to jump over that hedge. Yeah, he was like that. Old Bill.
Strict.
Yeah.
Really strict.
Yes, yeah.
And what else? Any other nicknames? Wasn't there a guy in the town called Rhubarb?
Yes.
Was that Kilworth?
Yes.
What was his story?
Well, he lived, you know Russell Terrace, do you know that road here?
Yeah.
You know that road that goes into Coombs Road? Mm-hmm. Well, that row of houses there, right next to the road, he lived this end. I went to school with his youngest son, Peter. He's about my age. Gone away from him though. Rhubarb. He had a little old pony and a 4-wheel cart. He was the local chimney sweep and light removals. He'd got a wooden leg. He'd lost that leg in the First World War. Okay. Yeah, and we called him Rhubarb. Right. And I never known his name otherwise, only Rhubarb. Right. But I say, if you had him to sweep your chimney, you'd only have him once, because he used to make such a hell of a mess, you wouldn't have him no more. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah.
He sounds like quite a character.
Oh yeah. He used to swear. God, yeah. He used to water his old pony in the square. Yeah.
With the pump, yeah?
Yeah, with that
on the trough
there, yeah. And so did Cope, the coalman. He had a horse and trolley carting coal round. He has Cope and Sons.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to school with his son. Yeah.
I guess the town of Rochford has changed quite a lot in your lifetime.
Yeah. I remember the market being there.
Yes.
The cattle market.
Were you ever involved in taking animals to market there?
No, I never did. No. If I was going to go to the market, Dick Clary, the farm lorry driver, used to take them. You know. Right. Yeah.
Did Rankins sell or trade a lot in the market, or did they go further afield?
Old George Dowsett old George, not young George, the son, like, he used to go that was every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And that time of day, the buses, that was double traffic all through Rochford. That wasn't one-way system then. And there wasn't that bypass.
Right.
So the buses that used to come out here were called Westcliff-on-Sea, and they was cream and red, and those low deckers, no double deckers come out here. They went to Pegglesham, Canewdon and Stambridge, you know, and they used to go in the square and turn round in the square, and where is Martin's now? The Martin's that was called Heath then, the newsagent. They used to stop there, and that's where you used to get on the bus. And they'd go round the other way and then come out that way.
Okay.
Yeah. But on Thursday, they used to park down the street in the south end, what do you call it? South Street. By just past Roughton's, that was the cycle shop then, and garage. Where its husband's a newsagent, that was. I don't know what it is now. Is it a record shop or something?
Sure.
I don't know. But that's where the bus stop used to be on a Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But the cattle, the steers and that, were up that end where it used to be. Is it the old library now? Used to be there?
Yeah.
But there was like 4-inch iron railings, and they used to be tied up there and put halters on them, like steers and that, you know, you big cattle. And then along that, right the way along there was all different pens, sheep, pigs, the lot, you know.
I've seen photographs of the sheep in pens and
the
auctioneers.
You know, always a policeman there to see they weren't going to be hurt, you know. You'd see him walking about there. Yeah. And cattle people used to haul them, was Coe from Hockley and Baker. I believe Baker come from Rayleigh, or either Hockley or Rayleigh.
Bakers, there was a Bakers in Rayleigh, and there's Bakers at Shopgate. Because I used to know some of the Baker family from Shopgate. There were Baker's Farms. You know the Carpenter's Arms? The other side of that's Baker's Farm.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's...
Bakers, I don't know whether the same family, probably are.
Could be.
They had cattle lorries, same as Coe.
Right.
So they used to go to all the markets, cart the cattle for the farmers down to all the markets. I mean, there was Chelmsford Market, Bury Edmonds. I mean, they all had a marketplace years ago.
Well, I remembered the Coe the other day when we were speaking. David Stacey's wife is a Coe, Anne. She was her maiden name's Coe.
Yeah? Well, never.
Yeah, I don't know whether she's the I think she came from. I don't know I thought she came from Hockley or Hawkwell.
Probably did.
So maybe the same family.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask her.
Well, I never.
I remember the Coe from somewhere. It was her that she was her maiden name. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after work, what did you get up to after work apart from sleeping? Was it a trip for an ale to the cherry tree, or?
We never went much to the pub. No. No.
What sort of social get-togethers were? Surrounding the church?
Generally, my brother-in-law now was like our mate John Staines. Staines family was sort of like brought up with them because they lived at Little Hall when we did, and they moved away because he was head cowman, their father. He moved to Great Hall, and that was when he was in the teens, and that the Staines boys were down at Great Hall, so sort of like,
There was a Staines at Pagglesham.
I don't know. I think that's a different family.
Different family, because I always remember seeing in the cricket pictures, the guy called Whopper Staines.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
So I wonder whether that was the same family.
No, I think it was a different family.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Any other of the characters that you remember? I mean, obviously you mentioned rhubarb and things. Anybody else that sticks out in your mind from your childhood or from your working years with the Rankins? Anybody else that you can think of that's worthy of mention?
Old George Dowsett, who during the war was like the farm foreman. He used to big man, wore a trilby, and he always used to ride a bike. never had a motor, he couldn't drive and that. He always had a 12-bore shotgun tied on his crossbar. Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah.
Was that for the Germans or for get his tea?
No, shoot the rabbits, anything. Yeah. He always had that gun with him.
Yeah.
Your rook scaring or anything, you know. Yes, old George.
Did they actually have rook shooting days in those days? Will they go rook shooting or rook scaring or?
Yeah, rook scaring. Yes.
A lot of the boys used to get that job,
That's
didn't
right. Well, I'll give you another instance in my grandfather. That was in the war, hadn't been going on long, I don't think, or a year or two. A chap named Jimmy Smith, he worked for Rankin as a boy, and he was rook scaring, and my grandfather was trimming that ditch out where there's a footpath right beside the church. He goes right up there, and then it turns and goes down to the rectory. But along that field there, top of the 16 acres, my grandfather was trimming that ditch out, and Jimmy Smith was there rook scaring. He was only about 16 then, I suppose, because that was a job for a boy, you go rook scaring. And the siren went, and Jimmy come running up at my grandfather. He said, "You want to get in the ditch?" he said. "Didn't you hear that siren?" He said, "Yeah." "Well," he said, "nothing happening yet." "Yeah," he said. He was frightened of his life, sort of thing. Well, it must have been a couple of years later. We was gleaning behind the wagons in that field here opposite the church, and his father was on the wagons, and we got back in the wagon with the boy to walk back, ride back with him, and he told me then that they'd heard from Jim his son was missing. And when I told my grandfather that, he couldn't get over it. He said, "Hey Jimmy," he said, "missing." He said, "It ain't 5 minutes," he said, "since he run up to me and said, 'You want to get in the ditch?' He said, 'No,' he said, 'the boy is out there and he's missing.'" You know, he couldn't get over it. No.
Never came back?
Yes, he did. He come back.
Did he come back?
That was months later. I think the Red Cross wrote to old Mully, as we called him, Jim's father, that they'd found him. He'd been taken prisoner, and I went to Jim, only a couple of years ago he died. He was 80 and he had lung cancer, but he hadn't smoked for years. And I went to he had his 80th birthday, and I held it down at is it the Horse and Groom? Yeah, held it down there. And Jim, that year before, had gone back to France to where he showed me where he was done a lot of his fighting, because he was wounded on D-Day. He was in the D-Day land, and he was wounded, and he showed me. He got the photo of a pillbox. It's still there. He said, "See that pillbox? That was wide open. You know, we got no cover." He said, "They pinned us down." He said, and eventually we took it. I said, "Did you tell you?" He said, "Yeah, eventually." But he said they'd pinned us down for a long while with our machine guns and that. But Jim went back there to see where, you know, he was took prisoner. He told me that they'd gone on patrol. And he said that young officer, he said, didn't know what he was doing of. He said, we was walking through these fields, single file, and that, he said the wheat was on here, and he said, presently, he said he stopped. He said, "I'm lost." He said, "I don't know where we are." So he said, we went along a bit further and we found a tank pit. So he said, we got in there. He said, while we was in there, he said, these Jerry Panzer tanks come up. He said, went right past us. He said, we still had. He said, I've got a German Luger pistol. He said, I took off one of the Jerry's. He said, I buried that straight away, because he said, they said if they caught you with it, they'd use it on you. He said, I buried that, so they wouldn't catch me on that, but he was wounded. And he said, this tank commander, was 2 or 3 of them, got up. He said he was looking with his binoculars ahead, never looked back. He said if he'd looked back, he'd have seen us all in there. he said, anyway, a little while later, he said, this German patrol come along, single file. He said, and they all marched past. He said, but the last one happened to turn and see us in there and coughed. He said, he hollered. He said, next thing was, he said, there was us getting our hands up. He said, I couldn't get my hand up because I was wounded. He said, and they very nice shot me because they thought I'd got a grenade. Yeah. But they put him in Cairn Hospital. So he told me. Yeah. And he said, them French nurses, he said they couldn't speak English, but he said they could swear in English. He said, because the RAF banged that every night. He said, and he said, when she was ripping your bandages off, the nurse in the morning, he said, used to give you one. Yes, he said, the RAF were here last night again. You know. Yeah. Poor old Jim. Yeah. But he said, opposite our hospital, he said, was the Gestapo headquarters. He said, we'd see them coming and going. He said, and then all at once, he said, I was deserted. He said, we couldn't make nothing out of it. He said, hello. He said, next thing was, he said, we was liberated. He said, oh no, that was the Yanks or the British bloke got in there. That was in Normandy, you know. Yeah, he was in the Cairn Hospital, he said. And that's when they notified his parents, you know, he'd been found. Else they just posted him as missing. You
were just young enough to miss all this then, weren't you?
Yes, yeah.
Good bit of timing.
Yeah.
They must have still had rationing and things when you're after the war.
Oh yeah. That
wasn't quite so bad out here, was it? Because you had the crops and things and.
Yeah, but you see, when I first started work, we were still on rationing, and old Harry Marsh lived up in that church bungalow, and because you was a farm worker, you got extra rations, and his daughter used to go, that was Green Stores, that was called, a grocer's down the street at Rochford, on your right that was, used to go there and get his groceries. I think, what was we allowed? A pound of sugar, a little bit of butter, was it? I don't know, 1 or 2 odds and sods. And old Harry told me he'd got 50 worked for Rankin Farm down there, 50 on his books. That's with the cowmen, horsemen, tractor drivers, and gaymen, as we call them, blokes who do the hoeing and all that, you know. Yeah, there was 50 of us on his books down there in 1948. Yeah. And when I retired, I was 8.
Yeah.
And now there's 2.
Yeah. Progress, apparently. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to Jamie Rankin the other day, and he said, who could have ever predicted that you could sit in a tractor now and set the sat nav and it runs up and down the field on its own?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, it's the tractor drivers are, in terms of driving, they're almost redundant. They've got to keep the tractor going, but tractors virtually drive themselves now.
Yeah, they can do. Yeah.
Very good.
Well, I used to, for about 20 years, I used to drive that big tractor all night. Yeah. On all Rankin's farms, gutted worked all them fields up there, all round here, Hampton Barnes. Yeah.
Were they good employers generally?
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, and a lot of people don't like Mottram, but I'll say to Anthony, his son, Mottram Rankin was a good governor. He wouldn't hear nothing about anybody. And if he'd got anything to say, he'd say it. And if he said no, he meant no. And if he said yes, he meant yes. You know, he was straight.
Knew where you stood.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he got us, before ever they started to make the government money, make them pay if you were off sick, he started up a sick club. He had us all at the office there one night and said, well, I think he said, if we start up a sick club, he said, because several can help one, whereas one can't help a lot. He said, and I think a man, when he's off sick, he said, he don't want less money, he wants more. He said, to pay for his medication. So we paid £2 a week. They'd stop out of your money, and the firm would put £2 in. And you get 8 weeks full pay and 8 weeks half pay. So it was 16 weeks, you know.
Very good, very good.
Yes, it was. I mean, that was a help then. I mean, if he was off sick or anything, you know. Yeah, he done that. He was good in lots of ways.